Welcome. Welcome to another Rush Generations Health Education Lecture. Rush Generations and our staff is delighted to be your source of information, resources, and health promotion programs that help you maximize your well-being and good health as you age. Today is Wednesday, June 17th, 2026. My name is Patrick, and I'll be your moderator for today's lecture, Aging with Pride. Before I present to you the wonderful speakers joining us today from our partners, SAGE, the Center on Halsted, and Pride Action Tank, I'd like to first thank Hannah Weitzman, as she will be helping with the production of this lecture. She will be helping us manage the chat and other key aspects so that we can all have a great discussion about the importance of affirming care and community connections and ways to build inclusive support systems for LGBTQ plus older adults. As always, we're live streaming this lecture on our YouTube channel using the video platform Zoom, which also allows us to host a good number of people who join us via phone. So thank you so much for joining us if you are watching on YouTube or have called in. For those of you on YouTube, we ask that you please use the chat function to ask questions and to add to the discussion throughout the lecture. We will make sure that your comments and questions make it to the presenters. And for those of you listening to the discussion through your phone, you will also have the opportunity at the end of the presentations to unmute your audio so that you can ask your questions. We'd like to remind you that all information offered here today is for general informational purposes only, and to always seek additional professional advice for situations specific to you and your needs. So without further ado, I want to introduce our esteemed panel of partners and colleagues today. So first is Jane Haskell. Jane Haskell is an LGBTQ plus advocate, organizer, and speaker with a background spanning higher education, nonprofit leadership, and community development. She has led initiatives and cultural competency trainings that expand access and support for underserved communities, particularly LGBTQ plus individuals across the lifespan. Jane has collaborated with organizations nationwide to advance equity in areas such as transitional housing and aging services. As Director of Impact and Engagement at SAGE, she works to strengthen support systems for LGBTQ plus older adults across the country. Next, Kim L. Hunt has been passionate about curating brave, inclusive spaces for social change for over 25 years. She is the executive director of the Pride Action Tank, known as PAT, at a project of the AIDS Foundation Chicago, where she also serves as vice president of special projects and innovation in the policy and advocacy department. Kim drives the innovation, collaboration, and learning necessary to make PAT a leader in improving the health, safety, and progress of individuals and groups within LGBTQ plus communities. She has served on state and local civic councils and community boards, has been a live commentator for the Pride Parade for ABC Chicago since 2022, and is the founding co-host of Outspoken LGBTQ Storytelling. And last but not least is Britta Larson. Britta Larson is the Senior Services Director at the Center on Halsted, the Midwest's most comprehensive community center for the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer LGBTQ community. She is responsible for overseeing the older adult programs at the Center on Halsted and the provision of case management services provided to the residents of the Town Hall Apartments, which is Chicago's first LGBTQ-friendly senior housing building. She is a licensed nursing home administrator and holds a master's degree in nonprofit management from North Park University. Please give us a warm welcome to our presenters for today, and we will let them take it away.
Thank you, Patrick. And hello, everybody. My name is Jane Haskell. I use she, her, hers pronouns, and I am the Director of Impact and Engagement with SAGE. I just want to start by saying Happy Pride. It's an honor to be here. I want to thank Rush Generations for having us, and it's an honor to be speaking on this panel with Britta and Kim. Again, I represent SAGE. We are a national advocacy and service organization that has been around since 1978. We are the nation's oldest and largest nonprofit organization dedicated to uplifting the lives of LGBTQ plus elders. We started in New York City and have now grown over the past 48 years to be a national organization. That does many different things that we'll get into in a little bit, but our mission is to always make sure that we are uplifting and bettering the lives of LGBTQ plus elders, and we do so by direct services, education, and again, making sure that we stay in the conversation and make sure that LGBTQ plus elders' needs are known when we are doing advocacy. Next slide. Like I said, we do have direct services, which are in New York City and in South Florida. We have 4 LGBTQ plus senior centers in New York City. 2 of those have LGBTQ affirming affordable senior housing attached to them. And we also have groups and in-person programming in South Florida in Broward County. We also do advocacy and policy work. This ranges from state level, national level, local level. We'll get into that in a little bit of some advocacy and policy work that we're currently working on. We also have cultural competency training and consulting for anyone in a business that is working with LGBTQ plus elders. And we also have national resources in public education. Next slide. So we'll start with national resources. The National Resource Center on LGBTQ plus Aging through SAGE is the country's first and only technical assistance resource center focused specifically on improving the lives of LGBTQ plus older adults. This is a federally funded resource center. And there are many different opportunities to learn for LGBTQ plus elders themselves, as well as those who care for them, whether you are a caregiver, a loved one, a provider. We are here for you, and we have information on how you can best serve LGBTQ plus older adults. Next slide. I also want to mention Sage Collab, which is our national partnership model. We have a network of LGBTQ plus nonprofits across the country who do work with LGBTQ plus older adults. We are always expanding this network, and currently we have 127 partners in 40 states, Puerto Rico, and Washington, D.C. The Center on Halstead is one of these lovely partners. We know that Sage, it doesn't make sense for Sage to have, a office in every city. We know that there is work that's existing that's already been happening, and that these community members know their community and know what their community needs more so than Sage. So instead of telling folks what they should be doing, we want folks to tell us how we can best support them in uplifting the lives of LGBTQ plus older adults. Again, we know that there's amazing work happening, whether it's at an LGBTQ center, an HIV service organization, a pride organization, social groups. We know that there are so many different types of groups that work with LGBTQ plus elders, and we really want to make sure that we invite these folks into a network for learning as well as referrals. We do get quite a few LGBTQ plus elders themselves reaching out to Sage for resources. And when we know what resources are in local communities, we are able to point folks directly back to opportunities to help them in whatever area they might need. Next slide. We also have some digital programming in here on the screen. If you are calling in, there is a screenshot of Sage U, which is our new website, is sageyou.org. And Sage U is our online platform and community for LGBTQ plus elders themselves. This is sort of like an online LGBTQ plus senior center where there are programs, there are lectures, there are different opportunities to connect with one another. If folks are in a rural area or they are homebound and might not be able to get out to programming, this is a way that folks are still able to access LGBTQ plus connection and programming as they age from wherever it is that they might be. Again, this is free. That is a free service. And we also have Sage Sense, which is a financial wellness app. So again, we do have some digital programming as well, and are really trying to make sure that LGBTQ plus elders, again, have the resources that they need to best support them. The Sage Sense app is completely free and has, it's kind of gamification. It's kind of like a game walking you through different types of financial strategies, whether that's saving, whether that is raising your credit score. There are many different ways here that are, again, designed specifically for LGBTQ plus elders, specifically around financial needs. Like I said, we do have advocacy and policy work at Sage. Sage's advocacy team champions policies that really reflect and uplift LGBTQ plus elders. We do so on a local, state, and national level. Some policy work that we're working on right now is we are in a campaign to drive public comment around HUD's equal access rule, which is currently being, again, there's public comment around why we should keep sexual orientation and gender identity specifically within the equal access rule. There is a move trying to take that out, which would impact transgender individuals, non-conforming individuals, as well as people who are not a part of the LGBTQ plus community. So that's something that we're doing right now, is actively driving comments to slow this process down and make sure that folks are thinking about the LGBTQ plus older adults that will be impacted by that specific decision. We have also worked with coalitions and groups across different states and cities to pass long-term LGBTQ long-term care Bill of Rights and HIV long-term care bills of rights. So again, we're really trying to make sure that LGBTQ plus elders stay in the conversation nationally and that we're uplifting their voices and their needs. And lastly, we have Sage Care, which is our training, consulting, and credentialing program. We do offer training for all levels of employees, from administrators to support staff to executives to volunteers. We also do have conversation topics that we can provide to groups in long-term care communities. If you want to have a conversation with residents, it's not necessarily a training, but it's a way for residents to engage around LGBTQ identity and build trust amongst each other. We also have consulting, which can be personalized to virtually anything. If you're trying to create a program, trying to implement a service dedicated to LGBTQ plus older adults, we can support you through that. And lastly, we have LGBTQ plus cultural competency audits. We can do a full audit on your entire organization or specific policies and procedures. Again, we really want to make sure that we're increasing the number of services that are available to LGBTQ plus elders that are culturally competent and affirming. Next slide. And lastly, these are just a few links. Not sure if you'll get this PowerPoint, but these are links if you have access to that you can click on for all of the programming that we did talk about today. Thank you. I believe Kim is next.
Yes, thank you for the handoff, Jane. I'll just wait for those slides to come up, and I'll say that it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me to be on a panel with these wonderful individuals. Pride Action Tank and AIDS Foundation Chicago have partnered with both SAGE and Center on Halstead always. So I'm very happy to share the panel. As was stated earlier, I'm Kim Hunt. I am the Executive Director of Pride Action Tank, which is a project of AIDS Foundation Chicago. And I'm also the Vice President of Special Projects and Innovation within the Policy and Advocacy Department, which is where Pride Action Tank lives. And I have to say this out loud, our policy and advocacy work is not funded by the federal government. We can go to the next slide. So Pride Action Tank turned 10 years old in October. It's really hard to believe that we've been around that long. I will say that We consider ourselves one answer to the question, what happens after marriage equality? Because we were created around the time that the marriage fight was wrapping up in the state of Illinois. And there were advocates who were thinking, well, what's next? How do we shift some of this momentum to other issues that are super important to our community? Issues that we work on, and I'll say we're a multi-issue entity that is really about community-directed strategy development, as well as co-creating opportunities for LGBTQ folks and our allies to develop and work on issues and interventions that are near and dear to their hearts. But all of our issue areas, I like to say, have the LGBTQ lens, but are of benefit for many, many other people when we are working together. The issues we focus on are health, safety, housing, financial security, and we look at the full lifespan of LGBTQ folks, but are particularly focused on youth and older adults. Um, and we do that because we know that some of the issues are very similar in terms of isolation, in terms of access to benefits and knowledge about benefits. Um, Both older adults and younger adults experience that in different ways, but some of the same issues. Next slide, please. So we entered older adult work the way we enter any new issue area for us. We start with a summit, and even before that, we have a group of individuals that include folks who are most impacted by the issue that we're going to work on as part of a committee to develop what that summit looks like. Britta was actually on the committee all those years ago when we were getting together, actually in 2016 for a 2017 summit. And the summit was 2 days long. And like with all of our summits, the first day was for the population, the impacted population. Second day was for anyone who wanted to return from the first day, but also folks who work in that sector that's in that population that serves that population. And that could be service providers, it could be researchers, funders, policymakers. We try to get all the different perspectives in the room together. And while our summits do include, the traditional panel discussions and keynote speakers and that kind of thing, we have a lot of time devoted to facilitated conversation based on subtopics of whatever that larger topic is. So for this summit, Out Aging on Our Possibilities, those topics included health and well-being as one, personal safety and security as another, and then the third one was community and connections. And within the facilitated conversations, we asked the same three questions in each of those topic areas. And those were like, what affects you every day regarding whatever this topic is? So what are you experiencing now? And what are your personal programming, policy, or provider needs? So what is it that you want to see? And then the third question is always about how do we bridge that gap between what you're experiencing now and what you want to see? And what we learned a lot, and some things were reaffirmed that we already knew, right? But there were three main themes that came out, and it was that older adults want to be strong advocates for themselves, both in healthcare settings, program settings, policy settings as well. They really wanted updated and transformed systems. We heard over and over again that they were tired of, for example, educating their doctors on who they were as older adults who are LGBTQ and or living with HIV. And then thirdly, they wanted to be visible. One thing that happens a lot with older adults is they get further and further removed from the LGBTQ community. It's like you reach a certain age and then you're just not in community anymore. And these were folks who still wanted to be in the room, in the space, and in the community. So we make sure that our summit reports are actionable. So they don't just sit on the shelf. We take those ideas, we go back to community, we say, this is what we heard. Is this right? Do we need to tweak this? And then we begin implementation. And so some of what came out of that 2017 summit is a series of trainings that we were able to stand up, so to speak, during lockdown. We had just received a grant to focus on the older adult work, and we had a whole different plan. And then in March, we all went home. So we said, what can we do? And so we created an advocating for change training, which is kind of a know your rights training for older adults. And it's about 4 modules long. The culminating event for that has been a summit in December, or not, I'm sorry, not a summit, but a webinar in December that focuses on older adults and policy related to older adults at the state level. We have Building Networks for Change, which is really a training for the workforce as well as anyone who has an older adult in their lives, and that's a 1 module training. And then we have Storytelling for Change, which is one of the pieces that we're most known for. And this is a 6 module training, with the 6th module being a storytelling showcase, where we actually invite decision makers into the space, virtual or in person, to hear the stories of 5 or 6 older adults. Sometimes it's theme-based, sometimes not. And the goal of that is really to help decision makers get a more nuanced perspective of the issues older adults are experiencing, because we get trained in advocacy for a 60-second, a 90-second story or pitch, and that's not enough to really help people understand what's going on. Next slide, please. So these are some examples of the storytelling for change in action. We have used stories, as I said, in our showcases, but also we have taken stories out on the road, so to speak. We have done the Outspoken show that was mentioned in my bio this past January. For the first time ever, they let an organization take all 6 storytelling slots. And it just so happens that the curator for Outspoken is also one of our trainers for the Storytelling for Change. So he didn't have any hesitancy about the quality of the stories, because he was a part of making that happen. When we have events in community, we often bring a storyteller. And so you see this, how I see myself, how I want to be seen, is something we did that combined both storytelling in the traditional aspect, but also a stock photo project that happened at both Center on Addison and also Affinity Community Services on the South Side, because as we know, geography matters in Chicago. So we had to do something north and something south. And the stock photo project was just such a beautiful way for people to express themselves. And in our program at Affinity on the South Side, one of the models stood up and said, "This is who is trans identified. So this is the first time I actually saw myself in all these years." Not a dry eye in the house. Because of the experiences that we've had, and because one of our members of our Outaging Committee, which we have kept since 2016, is a scholar on narrative psychology focusing on LGBTQ older adults, we wanted to get this work out into community so other people could use it. So there is a storytelling toolkit on our website. The focus is older adults, but any population would benefit from this. Next slide, please. We've also had a photo voice project, which many of you may be familiar with. It's a participatory action research project. We have prompts that we ask folks. We also have a training that includes an actual photographer who works with older adults, or as we move to more intergenerational programming, works with our participants to understand lighting and shadow and composition and all those things. Our very first training was just older adults, and part of the training was this is where the camera is on your phone. And then they go out and they take pictures based on the prompts and write a short narrative about that picture. And we use those pictures and narratives in our trainings that we do, cultural competency trainings, but also trainings that we do with federally qualified health centers. Next slide, please. And then, all of this is in service of action, right? We really want to, while we're building community or helping older adults build community in these trainings, we also want to see change, thus the for change part of the title. So building networks for change is really about the workforce and caregivers. We have a summit coming up focused on eliminating stigma that is going to talk a lot about older adults who are living with HIV. And then we have our annual December forum on LGBTQ and HIV aging issues, where we often have the director of the Department of Aging as what for Illinois, as well as other folks. We've had Sage, we've had Senator on Halstead, many other folks engaged in this work at that forum. Next slide, please. And then we really are about policy change at the end of the day while we are providing all of these other opportunities. And so over the years, in partnership with SAGE and Senator on Halstead and others, we've been able to, at the state level, modify the definition of greatest social need to include LGBTQ and HIV status. And I will say when we did that in about 2019, we were only the third state to add HIV. I'm sorry, third state to add LGBTQ, first state to add HIV. We had a SOGI data collection law passed shortly after we were all coming back into the world after lockdown. But one of the things you will remember is that in the very beginning, a lot of the folks who were most impacted by COVID were older adults and others in congregate care. And we had no idea the impact of COVID on the LGBTQ community because we weren't consistently collecting data at any level of government. And then another law was the Disrupting Disparities Act, which came out of a SAGE and AARP collaboration and report that include policy recommendations. And in Illinois, we were able to establish an LGBTQ Commission on Aging, as well as required training, cultural competency training for any entity that contracts with the Department on Aging, as well as as a advocate, a liaison between the LGBTQ community and the Department on Aging. And we're pretty sure that was the first advocate at the state level in an aging department in the country. And then most recently, and Jane has talked about this, is Long-Term Care Bill of Rights. We were working on that this past legislative session at the state level. We didn't quite get it across the finish line, but we're going to try it again next session, next year. And then there's one last slide from me before handing it over to Britta. And it's not popping up, but that's okay. We have this project called the Silver Awareness, there it is, Silver Wellness Advocacy Group, or SWAG. And again, it's focused on the workforce and de-siloing aging, HIV, and LGBTQ services for the benefit of serving all older adults through programming and policy and that sort of thing. So that is a very fast wrap up of some of the work that we've been doing. in the older adult space. And now I'll hand it over to Britta.
Great. Thank you so much, Kim. That was fantastic. It's a pleasure and an honor to be sharing this virtual stage with you and Jane. And thank you to Rush for making the time for this important topic today. My name is Britta. My pronouns are she and her, and I am with Center on Halsted. The name of our program is Pride in Aging. I'll tell you a little bit more about Center on Halsted in case you are not familiar. Center on Halsted is the Midwest's largest and most comprehensive LGBTQ community center. And I actually recently found out we are the world's third largest LGBTQ community center right here in Chicago. We actually have a new location on the south side. So I'll talk a little bit more about the expansion of our services and programs to the south side in a minute. I'll just briefly kind of give a highlight of some of the programs and services offered within Center on Halsted in case you're not aware. So we have a behavioral health program. We have a culinary workforce program that helps people obtain jobs in the culinary field. We have HIV testing and prevention. We have a youth and family department here at the organization serving young adults up to the age of 24 and queer families. And we also have community and cultural programs, especially in June. June's a very, very busy month. I think we have Laverne Cox coming to do a chat with us here at the Center in Halsted this week. So that was the hot topic with the seniors this week. All right, next slide. So I'm going to we have kind of two arms to our programs and services here at Center on Halsted in terms of older adults. So I'm going to start with Town Hall Apartments. You're looking at a photo of it. It is located right next door to the main building, Center on Halsted. If you're familiar with the area, we are at the corner of Addison and Halsted. Next slide. Okay, so what is Town Hall Apartments? Town Hall Apartments is LGBTQ friendly senior affordable housing. So this is for people age 55 and over. All of the programs and services are really geared for people who identify as LGBTQ, but we follow all fair housing laws, and anyone who is over 55 and is low income is eligible to apply. Residents pay 30% of their income towards rent. So that it's a fully subsidized building thanks to vouchers from the Chicago Housing Authority. And so what that means is everyone pays a different amount in rent because it's based on their income. And people can qualify to live in Town Hall if they have no income. The rent would be basically zero if they had no income. So that's great. It makes it very affordable. It's a relatively small building. It's 79 units, a mix of studios and one bedrooms, and we opened in 2014. Even though the building's been open now 12 years, the majority of residents who moved in on day one are still here. So that really speaks to the fact that people enjoy living in the building and we don't get a lot of turnover. Which is good. People really are living their best life here. But that does mean it's a long wait list. So the wait list is open. It's approximately 4 years. That's sort of my best guesstimate right now, based on kind of when people move in. I ask how long ago they applied. It's a great resource and it's a great building. Unfortunately, it is a long wait list. So the application can be done on the website, the CHA website, but if anyone needs help applying or talking about other housing options, they can just give me a call. Next slide. All right, so in the building, we have case managers providing intensive case management to all of the folks, thanks to a grant from Illinois Department of Supportive Housing. So that makes this building a little unique. Most senior housing doesn't really have intensive case management services offered. The case managers are also in charge of providing some fun programming and events to the residents of Town Hall. And then we're always busy doing health screenings, wellness programs. We have a complimentary yoga class offered in Town Hall thanks to a partnership with FFC. We do blood pressure checks and flu and COVID vaccination events in the building for the residents. Next slide. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about the other arm to our programming, and that we call our senior center on Addison. So that building is located on the first floor of the old Town Hall Police Station, which is on the first floor of Town Hall Apartments. So the corner of Addison and Halsted, we have a senior center. Kind of similar to other senior centers you might see or come across the city of Chicago, but what makes us unique is that all of our programming and everything we're doing really has an LGBTQ older adult in mind. So anyone over 55 can join us for programming. Pretty much everything we're doing is offered at no cost. Our staff coordinate special events throughout the year, including an event on Thanksgiving Day and also on December 25th. We, as a team, provide short-term case management to anyone over 55 who needs it. And that mostly is referrals, connection to benefits, connection to resources. So folks can call us or drop in on the days that we're open, which are Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, to receive that case management support. I like to think of our programming kind of with this wellness model. So for those of you who are on the phone, I'll describe the little image I'm looking at. So it says 8 dimensions of wellness. And when I'm thinking about our programming, I want our programming to really address each of these buckets. So these include emotional wellness, physical wellness, social wellness, occupational wellness, financial wellness, environmental wellness, spiritual wellness, and intellectual wellness. So an example of some of our programming right now includes we have a partnership with the City of Chicago to provide hot lunches to folks through the Golden Diners program. That's Tuesday, Thursday hot lunch, and Saturday's a box lunch. We have a peer grief and loss group, a senior yoga class. Actually, that yoga class is offered 3 times a week. A senior advocacy group, educational workshops, health screenings, technology training, employment assistance, and benefit navigation. Next slide. I'm going to put a quick plug in for a couple of things I really am excited about, or new things that we're doing, or things I want you all to be sort of aware of. I think knowledge is power, and aging can be incredibly overwhelming, complicated. These systems are not easy to navigate. I've worked in this field for a very long time, and I'm confused often by these things. So I put together an LGBTQ senior resource fair. This is an annual event held in the spring at Harold Washington College downtown. So it's very centrally located. It's free. It's an all-day event. This past year, we're looking at a photo of it. We had 85 attendees. We had panels, health screenings, workshops, LGBTQ vendor fair. The satisfaction survey from the results said 97% of attendees indicated that the event provided them with helpful information and resources. So we look forward to doing that again next spring, probably in early May. And so stay tuned for more details about that, but we'd love to see you there. Next slide. Something that's very needed, and there's a strong interest is intergenerational programming. That's already come up on the call a couple of times, which is great. So Center on Halsted partners with the School of the Art Institute for something we call the Intergenerational Dialogue Project. In the past, it's brought together 15 students from the School of the Art Institute and 15 elders to meet twice monthly for the entire school year, September through May. It always involves a meal, a shared meal, and a dialogue between the generations. Right now, that dialogue project's been doing kind of pop-up special events around the city. They just did one at Dorothy's Bar last week with a panel of elders. So some really great things coming out of that project. And then we meaning Pride and Aging, we partner with Center on Halsted's youth program to do intergenerational programming, including a talent show and a dinner. So lots of good things happening there as well. Next slide. And I mentioned this a few minutes ago. Center on Halsted has a new location at 63rd and Cottage Grove. in the Woodlawn area. It's very close to the Green Line stop, accessible by public transportation. There's plenty of street parking. So each department at Center on Halsted is starting to roll out programming at this location. For our team, right now it's quarterly lunch and learns at Cottage Grove, and the next one's going to be Wednesday, July 8th. Anyone over 55 is welcome. No RCP needed. We open the doors at 10:30. We have lunch, and then we have a guest speaker join us to share some information on a different health topic around noon. So stay tuned for that. We're looking forward to that event. It's really important to see our programming expand beyond the north side of Chicago. And then I will mention, you're looking at a photo of a legal clinic that we held at Cottage Grove in May. So that was in partnership with the Center for Disability and Elder Law. We have a great partnership with them. They are a pro bono law firm that provides free legal assistance to seniors. And so folks can get things like their advance directives, living wills, powers of attorney done at no cost through their legal clinic. So that's something that we do both at the South Side location as well as the North Side location. Next slide. So I have a quick slide just talking about kind of revenue and expenses, but all that to say, I mean, we don't really charge anything for any of our programming for seniors. So we're really, really lucky to have generous partners with deep pockets provide us with some funding so that we can offer some really great programs at no cost to the seniors. And we have a lot of good partnerships with different corporate groups who sponsor things like monthly bingo, special events, holiday meals, and our town hall parties. So huge shout out to all of our funders out there that support us and help make this possible. And is that my last slide? I don't remember. Yeah, it is. I will mention, okay, so here's all my contact information. If anyone has any questions or needs additional support, folks are welcome to reach out to me directly. If people are on the call and they're wondering, how do I join programming, just show up. So on our website is our calendar that lists all the things that we have going on. And so our senior center is open Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. And if people come on in and are new, we will help get them registered. So no registration needed, no appointment needed, just come on in. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much to you three. That was incredible to hear about the immense resources and advocacy and the work that you do every day for LGBTQ older adults. And I always like to switch it up a little bit to, obviously we have some questions that we prepared you with, but I want to open it up first. You all collaborate with each other so much, but you may not always get the chance to ask each other questions. So do you have any questions for each other?
My biggest question these days are, how are you holding up? So I'm always interested in that when I see one of my colleagues.
Yeah, that's a great question. Do you mind if I hop in and answer?
I don't.
Okay, great. I would say, day by day, taking care of myself and leaning into community. I think that's been really keeping me going, living these identities, working and advocating in these spaces sometimes feels like you aren't able to turn that off, right? And for me, it's about protecting my peace, about limiting my news time, and about making sure when I am closing my laptop that I am actually doing my best to check out, and then leaning into my community and the people that are here. I know that if I need something, I can lean on our elders. I can lean on my colleagues. I can lean on people in this space. And I just think that's a really beautiful thing to remember.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Britta?
Great. I would pretty much just echo that. It can feel overwhelming because we're serving communities that we also identify with, which is why we're doing this work and why we really, really care, why it's so important to us. But I get a lot of energy and inspiration from the folks we serve. So I'm really fortunate, even though, I'm a senior director of the program, I am doing a lot of direct service. I'm not just sitting in like some corner office and I never see other humans or other seniors. And so through that direct service, I just take away their wisdom. They have a lot of um, uh, just they can kind of look at the perspective of what's happening now, but from a longer perspective. They've been through some really, really challenging times, and they come with such resiliency. So they have a perspective about this too shall pass, and
Yeah.
we will get through it together, and we will support each other through these days. And so I'm really inspired by them.
I love that. I love that. I think as a fairly new 64-year-old, I had gotten to the place where I just wanted to stay home. And now I'm at the place where I have to get out and be with people. And every time I go to an event, I just feel so much better. So thank you for responding. And thank you for putting that out there, Patrick.
Of course. Yeah, I always love the part about like leaning into community and learning from actually sitting in, practicing what we preach, which is listening and learning to learning from our participants. And um, I always hesitantly say that joy is resistance. Joy is resistance, but you also got
Absolutely.
to do resistance on top of it. You can't just be like joy is resistance and then like anything. So, but okay. Any other questions that you might have for each other before I open it up? And also want to use this moment also to encourage folks watching on YouTube that if you have questions for our panelists, to go ahead and enter those now, while we discuss.
I'm curious if, because I do work nationally, sometimes I'm a little removed from the local work. And I'm curious for the two of you, if there's something that you think is unique or different about LGBTQ aging in Chicago or Illinois as a whole. I know there's a lot of rural parts of Illinois. So I'm just curious, is there anything that stands out to you as a specific need or anything different about doing the work in this geographic location?
I feel like Kim might have it harder because Kim's work is really statewide, and Chicago and the rest of the state are very, very, very different. So you've got to be building these bridges. And so I'm, very much only focused on serving folks here in Chicago. And I have the honor and privilege to work with so many folks who have been part of this movement for decades, and they talk about what the protest Pride March in 1971 looked like in Chicago, and all of these key moments and players in our history. They were there for that, and I think that is really special about Chicago and some of the folks that we serve.
Yeah, I'll say that's a very good question. To your point, it's there is a lot of diversity in terms of the different things that folks are experiencing across the state. And of course, every state and locale thinks that, they are unique. Our out-aging committee includes folks who are both in urban areas, but also rural areas too. And I recently went to Southern Illinois to visit with one of our partners in that part of the state because they were celebrating their 5th anniversary of Golden Rainbows of Illinois South. I have to say Greece out there, and you know Greece, Jane, and I know you do, Britta. And they're doing amazing work in a kind of a mixed area, right? You've got Carbondale there and some of the other cities, but then it's very, very rural. And I'm always reminded of how different the rural experience is or can be from the urban experience. But I know parts of Chicago, for example, where some of those same issues are being played out in terms of access to, or feeling like you have access to LGBTQ specific resources, or just feeling comfortable going to certain places because of your identity and just not being sure how you'll be received. But what I love is the ways that we are working together, whether it's on policy or just supporting each other in the work that we're doing. We actually have a project coming up with an organization in Carbondale. We do a annual project related to restroom access, for example. So there will be a parallel program happening in Carbondale at the same time we're doing something here in Chicago.
Thank you both. That's really helpful in, I think, painting the picture of who you're serving, what it is that they're experiencing, and how that works. So thank you.
Great question. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. So you've each talked about this a little bit already. And I do want to, call out Kim's your assessment that you did a handful of years ago around like what LGBTQ older adults want, which is to be visible, have community, and not have to educate their own providers.
Yeah.
So given that context as well, like you have research and data that shows what older LGBTQ older adults want. But what conditions are necessary for our LGBTQ older adults to, I guess, for them to age with dignity and with pride?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, from a societal perspective, of course, and we all know this, that aging needs to not be seen as a deficit, right? It's part of life, and we are all aging. And I think that perspective shift is going to be super helpful, but we're not there, and we're not going to be there for a while. I think also we have to remember that older adults, and then when you talk about older adults of color in particular, there's a big mistrust of institutions, including the healthcare industry, and with good reason, right? So there's a lot of trust building that's needed. There's a lot of understanding that just because a provider has had one training doesn't make them an expert. So I even hate to use the term cultural competency. I like to use the term cultural responsiveness, because it's then taking what you're learning and putting it into action. And I think that that mindset of cultural responsiveness is a practice, it's not a destination, is super important to employ, not just with providers, but from the parking lot through the billing system at centers when you're talking about healthcare. And then, the same kind of mindset when you're talking about programming, listening to people. One thing that I hear over and over again is that our housing and healthcare and other sectors just don't want to acknowledge that older adults still have sex. So even seeing people as a whole person is super, super, super important. And until we get there, providing those signals to people that this is a safe space, pronouns, rainbows. I used to think this was trite. It's like, this is nothing. That doesn't do anything. But those visuals and that attitude, that matters, because you want people, in the case of healthcare, to come back for their follow-up services. And then in the case of where people are living, we know that our older adults are terrified about going into congregate care, for example, because they think, and in some cases it's true, that they're going to have to go back in the closet. So we have a lot of work to do, and that's one of the reasons, honestly, we focus on de-siloing sectors, because as an individual, you touch many sectors. So there's not just the LGBTQ aging work. It's all the other stuff that folks have to encounter as well.
Yeah, so really that intersectionality of their experience of like there needs to be changes in the environment and in society for the LGBTQ community, as well as for people of color, as well as for aging in general, and then for folks at that intersection as well of like, yeah. Britta and Jane, any other thoughts on that to add?
My phone keeps ringing. I should have put on Do Not Disturb. I was just gonna add my background is in long-term care, and so when Kim was talking about the kind of living situations, you often have at least one roommate, sometimes more, and that is absolutely a very strong concern of many of our folks is what's going to happen to me as I age, as my healthcare needs change, and I might not be able to live independently alone. And we often talk about, what's the LGBTQ nursing home in Chicago? Where do I'm like, well, at home, there is not necessarily one designated LGBTQ nursing home. And to your point, Kim, like, well, even if one does one training, I mean, does that it check the boxes? They're done, and I can recommend them. And implicit to the question of what is an LGBTQ friendly nursing home in Chicago, people are also wanting good care, both good care and LGBTQ affirming, and those are actually not one and the same. And so all of these cuts, that are coming, and all of the challenges facing long-term care, I'm really watching that because I've been in the industry so long, and I've seen so many changes in the last couple of decades that are not in the best interest of vulnerable, marginalized, low-income older adults accessing excellent long-term care that is also LGBTQ affirming. So I look at it as really like dual challenge of both LGBTQ affirming care and also high quality, excellent care if your payer source is Medicaid.
I don't think I can add to that. I think both of you answered so much that I don't feel like I need to add anything.
All right. Well, for you all have the privilege, and this is interesting because when we first did this lecture, it was a lot of, okay, we're training providers, which is important, but not a lot of, okay, we're providing services to LGBTQ older adults. Like we're training providers, but we're not. Now all three of you are holding space for LGBTQ older adults. And so we've talked a little bit about really centering their voices and learning from them. So what are you hearing from them now? Like, what do they want? What are you hearing most often from them currently? And it can be, or it doesn't have to be related to the current everything context of what we're dealing with.
Oh, it is.
Right. Yeah, I think what I hear the most is that older LGBTQ people wish that more people had the context of what it means or meant to be LGBTQ 30, 40, 50 years ago, right? A lot of these people have been living this identity, have been out as LGBTQ since the 60s, 70s, 80s, when the fight was much harder than it is now. I'm not discrediting that it's challenging right now, and I think we can agree that there have been harder fights previously. And I think people want to be seen for that. People want to be acknowledged that I have lived through tremendous hard things because of who I love, because of my gender, because of who I am as a person. And I think that's the context that's kind of missing from some of these resources, right? Is when we're sending someone to a health center, making sure that the health center is not going to assume that the person is straight when they walk in the door, right? Or make any of these assumptions. But when someone can really understand the lived context of what an LGBTQ person, the legality of even being an LGBTQ person over the years has really shifted and changed. And I think that's what I hear the most, is that people just want to be, again, seen for the whole person and seen for everything that we as a community have gone through.
Yeah, I'm definitely hearing that, Jane, and a desire to be in intergenerational spaces to kind of share that knowledge, but also learn from younger people the context of the ways that they are experiencing the current moment as well. And also, there's just a lot of fear and confusion around what's going to happen on a very visceral, day-to-day level. What is happening to my food stamps, my Medicaid, my Medicare, all of these things? There's a lot of fear and unknowing, I think, that many things are survivable. I think, though, as you get older, your tolerance level and your vulnerability change, right? And so there's a lot of that and a lot of feistiness around, but we're going to fight this. So I'm hearing that too. But there is this undercurrent of fear as well. And then I think about older LGBTQ adults who are immigrants are perceived to be immigrants under this current political moment, and just the real absolute fear that folks are experiencing in that situation.
I think you two summed it up.
So I know we're slightly over time, but I do have a couple of important questions. We don't have any questions from the chat yet, but I want to ask. Um, so one part is making all spaces that older adults are in LGBTQ friendly, but what is the key to creating an environment and a space for LGBTQ older adults to be amongst themselves? What's the key to that?
I feel like with our folks, they love a good party. It's really hard to get them to come to like a lecture or a
That
workshop, but a
hasn't changed,
party
has
is like,
it?
yep, I'm down for that. I mean, it's nice to have joy and to
Yeah,
celebrate and just come together in community. Putting in a plug, I'm having a party on Sunday during Pride Fest.
look at
Everyone
you.
55 and over is welcome at Center on Halsted on the third floor. Starts at noon. We have a live band. We have food. So I think bringing joy and kind of common denominator. A lot of our folks, I think we touched on this earlier, they have a strong interest to continue to give back, to be
Mm-hmm.
lifelong learners. I might be an older adult, but that doesn't mean I don't want to learn a new language or learn a new skill. And so continuing to
Yeah.
offer programming that's of interest, that meets that need. And as an LGBTQ community center, I'm thinking a lot about it. It is very challenging to be a one size fits all. So one
Mm.
program that works
Mm-hmm.
for everybody, or is it of interest
Mm-hmm.
everybody, or that everyone would even feel welcome in the room. So I think there is definitely a space and a place to have special programming. So for example, we have an intergenerational trans storytelling group that meets every other Saturday here in our senior center. And so the trans community can kind of come together and in an intergenerational way and find support. And so I do really want to continue to grow programming for specific demographics within the LGBTQ community, because their interests, needs, and backgrounds are different, and to give them
Yeah.
that space is important.
Thank you for lifting that up, Britta, because, as you know, because being on the out aging committee in the past, when we were putting the trainings together, for example, for the advocating for change training, we learned from older adults, we got to talk about language, because the language has changed over time. and some of us don't understand certain identities. And so we've learned to start our training modules for older adults with that concentration on language and actually talking that through a bit, so that the space is welcoming and feels like a brave space for all of the identities under our little rainbow umbrella.
Yeah, I'm also thinking about physical space and
Mhm,
like ageism and how there could be
mhm.
systemic and structural barriers that keep someone from actually accessing something if they can't physically move in the space or access it or what that looks like. I think there are a lot of LGBTQ plus elders who feel as if they might be one of the only older people at an event, right? No one wants to feel like the only or the token or anything like
Mhm.
that. And I think at the same time, what are we doing to create the infrastructure for older adults who might have mobility issues, who might have hearing issues, who might have different ability statuses to be able to actually enter a space? Like I'm thinking about pride in
Yes.
general. Like, is there a way for an older adult to maybe park somewhere and get a ride to the actual parade? Is there a space for elders to meet each other and to be with one another and be in community? Like, I think thinking about the intersection of both of those things, right? There are LGBTQ plus considerations and there are also aging considerations. And I think both need to be in place for
Mm,
LGBTQ older adults to again really feel like they can be their full self and really show up and not worry. I safety isn't guaranteed
whew,
anywhere, but like Kim said, we still do look for some signs and signals
yeah.
that this might be a more approachable, safe, a little bit safer of a space. So I think thinking about that and constantly bringing in the aging lens as well as the LGBTQ lens to think about how someone, again, in this lived experience is going to navigate a program, a space, a center, an event,
Mhm,
etc.
mhm. Center on Addison has one of the best pride parties in town because they're out there on the roof just watching the parade go by. To your point, Jane,
Love that.
that's a very accessible way of experiencing pride that not every older adult gets to experience.
Love that. All right, final thought. What is one thought, hope, or action that you would like to share with our audience for today?
Yeah, I think it's never one thing, right? But I think in this moment, given what's happening to our social safety net for all folks, but especially for those who are most vulnerable right now, it's really, really important that providers, institutions, individuals engage in advocacy and get involved to the extent that you can. Um, I know a lot of institutions shy away from, saying, hey, this thing is happening, we need to be involved. But this is an all hands on deck situation. We are seeing the erosion of basic, basic human compassion from the federal government. And we're just seeing the beginnings of it. It's not to end on such a downer, but if we don't all step up in the ways that we can, it's just gonna get worse. And I encourage people to check out AFC's Action Center. There are a lot of low barrier ways to get engaged. And I will say that the older adults that we work with, they are in it. We send requests for letters or witness slips or whatever, and they are on it. So, so more of that.
I would encourage people to just try their very hardest to make sure they have checked all their boxes for their aging plan. We are all aging and we all should have a plan. And the plan should include all your advanced directives and kind of who is going to help you should you need it, and knowing what resources are out there, and to not wait until there's an emergency, and to not wait until it's too late to do some of these things, because that is to that person's detriment. But for anybody in their life who's here to support them, if those documents aren't executed, their ability to really help or be, making decisions will be very limited. So I think just being very proactive and knowing what's out there. And if someone's feeling like they really want to meet new people and build that connection, if they're in Chicago, there's lots of resources. I think it can be, the hardest thing is that very first step or that very first phone call. People tell me all the time, gosh, I really didn't want to get out of bed this morning. I really didn't want to come here today. I'm so glad I did, but it was so hard. And I just kept telling myself, just go, just go. You'll be glad you will be glad you went. But just kind of getting over that barrier, it's a real barrier and it's really challenging. But I think you'll be better for it in the end if you just give it a try.
Yeah, I think recommendation is, if you know an LGBTQ plus elder and you're not one, reach out to them and check in on them. I think advocacy is important, and so is the personal connection, and like physically picking up the phone and calling someone and just letting them know you're thinking of them. And if you are an LGBTQ elder yourself, do you have a friend that you want to check in with? Is there someone that you can lean on, right? Because these times are tough. And can you be that person for someone else, especially an LGBTQ older adult? So I think don't forget about the personal connection and the personal, again, that's how we reduce social isolation, is bring people together. So how are we individually doing that?
Great. Well, thank you three so incredibly much for your participation today, and happy Pride Month to you three and to everyone who's watching. I can't thank you enough for your contributions today and the work that you do all the time. Yeah, thank you again.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
All right, well, that concludes our lecture for today. And we do just have a couple of announcements for our upcoming programs through Rush Generations. So we have upcoming up at the Southeast Atlas Regional Senior Center, which is located at 1767 East 79th Street in Chicago, Illinois. It is going to be on Tuesdays starting July 7th through August 25th, and there are a handful of spots left from 1 to 3 p.m. WRAP stands for Wellness Recovery Action Plan, and it is a free 8-week program for anyone over the age of 18 to learn skills, to get well and stay well, and to make life more enjoyable. This workshop will teach participants to develop a daily wellness plan, discover simple and safe strategies, and create plans for responding to stress, negative thoughts, and challenging times. The group meets once a week for 8 weeks for 2 hours. And since this is at the Southeast Atlas Regional Senior Center, you do need to be either 50 and older or have a disability to be able to participate in this session. Next up is Take Charge of Your Health. That's going to be held in person at the new Sankofa Village Wellness Center in Garfield Park, which is at 4305 West Madison Street, Chicago, Illinois, 60624. That's going to be on Tuesdays starting July 14th, going through August 25th, 9:30 a.m. to noon. Take Charge of Your Health is a 6-week workshop for people with ongoing health conditions. Learn how to build skills to gain confidence, better manage your health, and lead a more active life. Over the course of 6 weeks, we discuss goal setting, nutrition, physical activity, medication and pain management, effective communication, and strategies for working better with your healthcare professionals. And then, of course, we always have to plug our Shaman Senior Voices program. Shaman Senior Voices aims to empower older adults to discuss what matters most to them as they age. It is important for you to share what matters most to you with your physician and your loved ones. Shaman Senior Voices wants to hear from you. Please consider sharing your wisdom on why it is important for your healthcare team and loved ones to know your goals and wishes and what matters most to you at aging.rush.edu/shaman/collaborate and connect. Or you can scan the QR code on the slide with your mobile device or smartphone. And of course, let's check. We will see you for our next lecture on Wednesday, June 24th, starting at 1 p.m. Central Time on brain health and Alzheimer's disease awareness. Thank you all so much for being here today. And again, follow us on Facebook, give us a call, and thank you so much for participating today with our Rush Generations Health Education Program.